It's estimated to be a $32 billion, with a B, $32 billion industry, and growing.
It's people that you would never imagine, and they get away with it because nobody would ever accuse them of it.
Most of them said they serviced about 8 to 10 men a night and that they saw no way out.
I felt like every dream and every goal that I had died that Friday night.
I turned to drugs and alcohol as a way of trying to make myself feel better.
It's hard to get an accurate number of how many slaves there are in the world today. So the estimates that you hear most frequently are 27 million people. A lot of people have heard the term human trafficking. They don't necessarily know what it means, that's the term we use for modern day slavery. The three words that are part of the legal definition of human trafficking are force, fraud, or coercion. So any time that somebody is, through force, fraud, or coercion, having to perform, whether it's a commercial sexual act or labor or something else, for somebody else's benefit, and they are not able to choose to leave.
The abuse started at a very early age with my stepfather. When the human trafficking part came in, though, it was right after I turned 15 by a family friend that was really high up in our community. And it began innocent enough in my eyes. I thought that the relationship was normal. There became this relationship between us, and it was always an unspoken thing of don't tell anyone that this is going on, and nobody would understand, and you don't want people to be jealous or to try to break this up, what we have, so I didn't tell anyone. And then eventually that wasn't enough for him, and that's when the idea came out about prostitution. And at that point, I think my self-esteem was so low that I would have done anything that he asked to keep him around. But at the same time that all of this was going on, I was still living this double life of going to school the next day and put on the happy face, and I was, the cheerleading captain, and I had everything put together, and nobody knew that, during the day I'm this perfect student, and at night, I'm sleeping with whoever he wants me to sleep with.
When the person who's being trafficked is under the age of 18, then it's automatically considered trafficking. In other words, legally, a 14-year-old girl cannot choose to be a prostitute, and that's the term we use. Somebody is being prostituted, that is not a choice, and they're actually a victim of human trafficking. No young girl says, gee, what do I want to be? Do I want to be an astronaut? Do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be an attorney, or do I want to be a prostitute? I don't know, they all sound good. Nobody does that, it's not a choice.
My family moved into an area that we thought, or they thought, was a safe neighborhood. And so right around 13, a couple moved into the neighborhood. They got to know all the parents. They came to the school. They became part of the school, although they didn't have any children. They were monitors and part of the PTA and chaperones. And then when I turned 15 years old, they asked 4 girls, including myself, to go to New York City. And at 15 years old, we all begged our parents to go. Finally, when I got a yes from my parents, I was the last person to get that yes, and we went off to New York City. We were told that we were going to go shopping and to see a Broadway show. Well, we got there, we did go shopping. However, right around 8 o'clock, we were taken back to a hotel, and we were given some clothes and told that if we didn't put these clothes on, we'll never make it back home to see our parents again. I was scared. I mean, they put the fear of God in you, literally. They told us that if we did tell, they would kill our parents. They told us we would be killed. I didn't tell anyone. I was going to school one day, and I saw his car pull up in our parking lot, and I started to run. And when I started to run, he told me to get in the car. His brother got out the car and snatched me, and that's when they kept me for 8 months. Well, during that 8-month period, he had about 15 girls, and I really can't remember. He had a lot of boys too. It was probably like 10 to 12 boys that he was selling into prostitution. And we went all over the country. We went to every sporting event. He did a lot of NFL games. He did a lot of quarter horse shows. He was pretty high end. We were never involved in street prostitution. It was pretty high end.
Human trafficking is actually now considered the second largest criminal activity in the world. Drug trafficking would be first, and then human trafficking is second, overtaking illegal arms sales. And the reason that it's becoming such a huge problem is that it's so profitable. People think, well, this is all about sex, and that's part of it, but it's really all about money. And the price worldwide, the average price of a slave is $90.
You know, growing up, I had the perfect life from the perfect family. Everyone thought I had it all together. You know, I was really involved in school. I was homecoming queen, student council president, you know, everything looked good. But really, it was a mask that I was wearing all through school, covering up that pain and confusion that I had inside of being sexually abused by my own stepdad. And this was a guy in our community who was well respected, who was loved. No one would have ever suspected that this was going on, you know, behind closed doors. And so I sort of packed it away for years and just thought if I can just get through my childhood to 18, then I'll be fine. You know, no one talked about sexual abuse, so I didn't know other than to believe what my stepfather told me, and I was afraid of what would happen if I did tell. But finally, at the age of 14, I did. I found the courage to tell my mom. She actually believed me, which isn't very common in the stories that I hear. And she reported it. We were in hiding, and 7 days later, my stepdad killed himself. And I can tell you that just totally rocked my world. I felt like everything that I was, my identity, my family, was just completely shattered. I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I decided I was gonna put my secret back under lock and key and not talk about it again. And so I did that for a while, but over time I realized that in order to heal from my past and my childhood, I had to talk about it. I had to find my voice and to break the silence about sexual abuse.
I think when people hear the word John, they think of this monster. And unfortunately, it's not just something that you have the person has a big arrow over their head saying, I'm a John, look at me. Like, they are sneaky. It is your everyday person. The people that I ran into were people that had a high status in the community, and they were supposed to be the people we could trust. Plus, a lot of the people I dealt with knew my family personally, so they were people that I had grown up around.
To think that a trafficker or a pimp is just a guy is wrong, because there are females that are traffickers, and a lot of times these guys that are like the main trafficker will use a woman to help recruit you. And so I was probably more closer to his wife, who we found out later was his first victim. And she was a teen victim when he got her. And so they are very, very slick. He is very charismatic, very loving, very attentive. And so sometimes when girls are so vulnerable to getting the attention that they're not getting from somewhere else, and that's one huge way where these guys can lure them in.
What we've noticed is that so many times these pimps are looking for young girls who probably don't have a father figure or are being abused at home. They find them in the malls, and you know they try to buy them with their words or with money or with fame or with the idea that they're going to get a modeling contract, or they just try to fill broken girls' minds with things that sound like the answer for the hole that's in their heart, because most of them have been sexually abused as kids, or they're in a very broken home and they're looking for a daddy type or someone who's going to take care of them. And so that's often the situation that we've found here in America.
Some of the red flags are when you see a kid with a hotel room key and they're not 18. Well, somebody's giving them that hotel room key. When you see them with a lot of money, branding is a huge thing right now for these victims. I just read an article where one pimp is branding these kids and tattooing their eyelids. So branding is huge. You see a name here, or now they even use a logo. They may not use their name, they'll use a logo, and that's absolutely a red flag.
It takes on many different forms. It's your next door neighbor, it's your best friend, it's, you know, the girl at the checkout line. Like, it doesn't discriminate against anybody.
I think one of the things that parents should do ultimately is communicate with your children. Have that open door with your children, because these kids don't have a safe place to go to. Your parents will never ever know.
I think the biggest thing is finding somebody that you can open up to and to bring light onto those secrets, because it is too big of a burden to carry on your own. I was really lucky that I had some people that came alongside me that supported me and got me talking and got me sharing my story, and if it weren't for them, I don't know where I would be.
For years I felt like I was alone, that I was the only person who'd gone through this childhood that I'd experienced. And it wasn't until I began to find my voice and start sharing my story that I realized that I wasn't alone. So many people were saying, you know, me too. And that, I guess, helped me understand the complexity of these issues and how often it happens, that we are not alone. You know, if you've been sexually abused, if you've been trafficked, you're not alone, and that there is hope, you know, that the things that we've gone through were not our fault. This is an evil that is unfortunately become an epidemic around the world, and it's taking children as victims, and we are victims, but we can be survivors, and that's the point, is that we don't have to remain victims the rest of our lives, that there's healing available, that there's people, there's organizations that want to help not only end this issue, but to wrap their arms around the survivors that have been affected by this issue.
The survivors are starting to speak out more about the issue, and I think the more survivors that come forth and say, this did happen to me, our future is very bright.
Do you think this nightmare will end?
I believe that we will abolish human trafficking.